Mine is. Is yours? It's working.
Press it. Oh, works now.
No, I think they can. Yeah.
Mine's green too.
Yeah, but Roberta's is on.
Ah, it's- Welcome to this meeting of council. The meeting will be live streamed and recorded. The voices and images of those participating in the meeting may be captured as part of the recording. Indigo Shire Council acknowledges the original custodians of these lands. The people of the rivers and hills have walked these lands for thousands of years as well as today, and we pay respect to the elders of the past, present and emerging. As councillors, we have all taken an oath to carry out our duties in the best interests of the people of Indigo Shire and to do this in a fair and impartial manner. We are all committed to exercising the council's powers and functions to the best of our skills and judgment. On behalf of my fellow councillors, the management and staff of Indigo Shire, I would like to acknowledge the life and service of Her Majesty the Queen and to extend our condolences to His Majesty the King and Her Majesty's family and friends. Her contribution and dedication to the serving the Commonwealth for more than 70 years is to be admired, and we greatly appreciate her service. The outpouring of grief since her passing is testimony to the enormous respect that she was held in by so many. Item 3, do we have any apologies and absence and leaves of absence? No. Do we have any declarations of conflict of interest? No. Open forum. Open forum has changed because of Governance Rule 32.5G, which was passed by Council at the last Council meeting. So I will now read the notices that have been handed into Council. And the persons are present in the room. The first question is from Mark Fletcher. The question is, which I'll address to the CEO, can planning please provide me with a detailed site plan for the location identified by them 250 metres from the Stanley State Forest? Reference page 30 of tonight's agenda. CEO.
Attached, so we'll make sure we forward whatever map or plan we can to that email address following the meeting.
The second lot of questions are from Robin McLeish. Question 1, when will Council provide information on the introduction of a 40-kilometre speed limits in all of the Shire's CBDs? The Director, Infrastructure, Ian Allett.
Thank you, Councillor. Thanks, Robin, for the question. Look, right now we don't have a definitive information about the speed limit. So if I start with Beechworth, a reduction in the speed limit in Beechworth in the CBD down to 40 k's was considered by the Traffic Liaison Committee. That consists of council officers as well as police and Department of Transport. So that's been supported at that level. The next stage of that is it's got to be considered by Road Safety Victoria, and I believe that's going to happen on the 10th of October. And then from there, it's got to go to the Minister for a sign-off, and the state election, might get in the way. That would normally take about a month, so that could just interfere with those timeframes a little bit. So I suppose right now on Beechworth, we can say it's been supported at that level, but there's not been a definitive decision about the speed zone. Elsewhere in the Shire, look, I know that Rutherglen has a 40k limit in the main street, as does Yakandanda, and I'm not sure that any other towns are currently under consideration. Thank you.
Question number 2, unless I give part of the introductory statement, the question won't make sense. So the statement reads that on the 30th of August 2022 Council meeting, Council responded to a petition that recommended that Indigo Shire support the relocation of the historic carriages to the railway goods shed. The Council officer's comments included a statement that the National Trust has considered the goods shed as a location and has ruled it out as an appropriate venue. Question: can the CEO confirm that the Council received this information in a formal communication from the National Trust, and if so, did the communication provide reasons for the Trust's decision?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for the question, Robin. You will recall at the last meeting I made a comment that there were verbal comments made to staff at various meetings in this regard, and I think I made a reference to an MOU that we're putting together with the National Trust. And I think I suggested then that I would defer any comment to when that MOU comes out. So we're very, very close now to signing off on an MOU with the National Trust, and it will include a statement in regards to the goods shed, and it'll include in that statement any reasons for any recommendation that's in that MOU. So again, I'll defer that question until the MOU comes out, which should be imminent, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Question 3. Prior to any action on the Rutherglen Destination Management Plan direction, will Council dispose of the joint ownership of the Wine Experience building and recover the hundreds of thousands of dollars of rates revenue that they have used to establish joint ownership of the building? Council must reassure the community that our rates will not be used to provide funds for the sale of alcohol. CEO.
Thank you, Robin, and through you, Mr. Chair. So the report that's before council today has a range of things in regards to the Rutherglen Destination Management Plan. There are some comments in there with regards to the building itself and the previous council decisions in regards to the building and serving of alcohol, as well as some recommendations in this report. That report attached does not include any recommendation to council that the Wine Experience building be sold before it considers today's destination management plan. So there's no recommendation that we sell it. Indeed, that building is a very well regarded building. It's the home of the Visitor Information Centre. It's a great location and it's well regarded as being for that purpose. So there's no suggestion whatsoever to council recommendation that we do sell that building. On the question of whether or not alcohol is sold from the building, that's a question for council to consider later on its agenda paper. So I can't really speculate as to which way council will go on that.
Thank you, CEO. Item 6, community and council achievements. No. Item 7, condolences. Councillor Horn.
I wish to acknowledge the passing of two highly respected Rutherglen community members. Mr. Brian Jasper, who was awarded an OAM in 1991, served as a councillor on the Shire of Rutherglen from 1972 until 1993, including 3 terms as Shire President. He was a Justice of the Peace. He was awarded life membership of the National Trust and served with the local CFA for 53 years. Brian was also a foundation member of the Rutherglen Historical Society. He was on the Rutherglen High School Council and was a board member of the Rutherglen Water and Sewerage Authority. He will be remembered for his close association with St. Stephen's Anglican Church, where he spent over 60 years in a variety of roles. I request that a appropriate letter be sent to his family, please.
Do you wish to move a motion that a letter under seal be sent to the family? Moved by Councillor Horn. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Price. Is anybody against the motion? Carried. Councillor Horn.
Mrs. Valerie Buller, the matriarch of the well-known wine family, passed away on the 11th of September, just short of her 93rd birthday. In the day, she was actively engaged in promoting the wine industry and was a poster girl for our now famous Sydney may have a nice harbour, but Rutherglen has a great port sign. She also used her passion for gardening and affinity with wildlife to create a different visitor experience by establishing the region's only bird park adjacent to the winery. This unique tourist offering appealed to locals and visitors alike, and Val was always ready to share her knowledge and provide refuge for injured native birds and animals. She held executive positions with Red Cross, the Garden Club, and other social and cultural groups, in addition to organising the annual flower shows, which again attracted many different types of tourists to the town. A remarkable lady who will be missed.
Would you like to move a motion that a letter of condolence be sent to the family? Moved by Councillor Horn, seconded by Councillor Price. Is anybody against the motion? Carried. I would also like to mention the passing of Maxwell Keith Edgar, who was a Shire President and Councillor of Beechworth in the 1970s and 1980s. He passed away on the 14th of September 2022, aged 64 years. I have no other details. Would somebody like to move a motion that a letter of condolence be sent to the family? Moved by Councillor Horn, seconded by Councillor Goldsworthy. Is anybody against the motion? Carried. Thank you. Item 8, the recommendation is that the following minutes be confirmed. The minutes of the council meeting held on the 30th of August 2022 as published on the council's website, and 2 confidential minutes of the council meeting held on the 30th of August 2022 as provided to councillors under separate cover. Somebody like to move that? Moved by Councillor Price, seconded by Councillor Tysell. Is anybody against the motion? Does anybody else wish to speak to the motion? Carried. Item 9. Do we have any business arising from those minutes? No. Item 10, petition.
So it's away from the green. Yeah, there were some business rising, but there was a question taken on notice which was answered to you, Mr. Mayor, in regards to the good shed water, and the responses in the minutes or in the agenda, sorry.
Thank you. Item 10, petitions. We have no petitions. Item 11.1, the recommendation is the council accepts the draft financial report for August 2022. Somebody like to move that recommendation? Moved by Councillor Croucher, seconded by Councillor Tysell. Councillor Croucher.
Yeah, the August financial position continues to closely match the year-to-date budget despite some unfavourable variances as seen in the individual count lines.
Would anybody else like to speak to the motion?
To ask a question, please. I have a question for Director Pinkerton. In the August 22 income statement, under reimbursements, there was a figure of 338% variance. Could you please explain to the community that amount?
Yes, certainly. Thank you for the question. In this case, the reimbursements relate to maintenance activities on council buildings where there's shared responsibilities. And being maintenance, it's often hard to predict with great accuracy. So there's been a couple of maintenance items that have needed attention early in the financial year, and that's added some cost, but also recoup some reimbursements from the parties that have that shared responsibility.
Thank you.
Would anybody else like to speak to the motion? Is anybody against the motion? Carried. Item 11.2. The recommendation is the council pursuant to Part 4, Division 3, 99(2) of the Local Government Act 2020 approves in principle the 2021-2022 performance statement and financial statements. And 2, nominates in accordance with Part 4, Division 3, 99(3) of the Local Government Act 2020, 3 councillors being Councillors Gaffney, Price and Goldsworthy as signatories with the authorisation given to any 2 of the nominated 3 councillors to certify the 2021-2022 performance statement and financial statements along with the CEO and the Principal Accounting Officer in their final form after any changes recommended or agreed to by the auditor have been made. Would somebody like to move that recommendation? Moved by Councillor Price, seconded by Councillor Goldsworthy. Councillor Price.
Yeah, so as is stated in the recommendation, it's a requirement of the Local Government Act. And the statements have been through both the Finance Committee and the Audit Committee, and then they proceed to Vargo. So this is a process that we follow, and then they go through to the Local Government Minister as well.
Councillor Goldsworthy.
I'll need to mention that I think this might be the last major report that we received from our financial officer. So he's done a great job in his service to council over the years, and this is another very thorough report from him. So thank you for that.
Would anybody else like to speak to the motion? I would just like to add that the Audit and Risk Committee, as Councillor Price said, supported this and spoke about it for a considerable amount of time at the last audit meeting. The external auditor appointed by Vargo also gave in principle support to the annual performance statement and financial statements. Is anybody against the motion? The motion's carried. Item 11.3, planning permit application 322 Bells Flat Road, Yakandanda. Councillor Croucher.
I'd like to mention that council have considered the application on its merits and resolves to issue a planning permit for the use and development of a dwelling at 322 Bells Flat Road, Yakandanda, subject to the following conditions. And I'm not going to go through them all. I'm just going to go through the headings. Number 1, approved use development. Number 2, consolidation of lots. Number 3, endorsement of bushfire management plan. Number 4, inspection before occupation. I'm sorry. But that's the whole, this is part of the recommendation.
Part of the recommendation. Well, all right, you can continue.
You want? Yeah, sorry. Mandatory bushfire management condition. It's number 6, external fabric. Number 7, storm water. Number 8, access to dwelling. Number 9, effluent disposal. Number 10, wastewater disposal area maintenance. Number 11, sediment control and soil and water management. Number 12, expiry date.
Would somebody like to, seconded by Councillor Goldsworthy, Councillor Croucher?
Having visited the site and observing the area, it looks more like a rural residential area to me, with a number of dwellings in the vicinity, all of less than 40 hectares. In other words, the application is consistent with what is around the Bells Flat Road. Next door to the applicant is a 24.3 hectare with a dwelling and a small lot of 5,000 metres. The bushfire risk is, there's a management statement and plan, and it's been developed in consolidation with CFA and endorsed with the CFA. I'd just like to put this consideration in with these conditions on it and approve the application on its merits for a planning permit. Oh, sorry.
Councillor Goldsworthy.
Look, I too have reviewed this documentation, and the 2.5 pages of conditions, I think, adequately provides for the planning permit in this case. Whilst it's in a farming zone, the surrounding properties certainly don't depict that, and I think this will be an appropriate use for that land.
Would anybody else like to speak to the motion? Councillor Horn.
Yes, I think the fact that the CFA were happy with the arrangements made about the fire shelter and threat of fire. And I also think it's unlikely to attract any agricultural activity. So I think it's a worthy application, and I support it.
Would anybody else like to speak to the motion? Councillor Price.
Yeah, for similar reasons stated by other councillors, I'm satisfied that it would be an appropriate decision to approve this application rather than to refuse it.
Would anybody else like to speak to the motion? Councillor Croucher, do you wish to sum up? No. Is anybody against the motion? Carried. Item 12.1, the 2022-2023 Tourism Events Grants Program. I don't intend to read them all, but the recommendation is the council distributes $30,000 for the 2022-2023 Tourism Events Grants Program as following. It then lists 8 events which have been funded. Somebody like to? Certainly.
Just a query about number 3 on the list, the Nicholas Hotel Beechworth Celtic Festival. Is the Celtic Festival still going ahead?
I can see if Mark's on the line there. Yep, you're there, Mark Florence, Director.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. Yes, so staff have inquired about the that particular event, and it's been confirmed that at this stage it's proceeding. So there's no reason not to fund it if council's of that view.
So if the event doesn't proceed, I gather we'll get our money back. Excellent.
Yeah, that would be the case, councillor. Thanks.
Would somebody like to move that recommendation? Moved by councillor Shepherd, seconded by councillor Tysell. Councillor Shepherd.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited with the list that are here. The only thing that I note that isn't in this report but is in the attachment is the logistics budget, which we are also spending, which I think is important to include, which people might not have got to the attachments, because the Rutherglen Fair, I think, is being fully funded with its logistics budget, which seems to be the most major part of that whole fair, really. The rubbish, road closure, it's something like $4,000, $5,000 worth of logistics. So it may look like there's only 8, but there's quite a few have also got logistics, and Rutherglen Fair is very well covered. So I just wanted to add that. But otherwise, I'm looking forward to attending most of these, and congratulations to the community groups that have community and some businesses, but they're all community people who have gone to the trouble of wanting to entertain us. So, yep, should be good.
Councillor Tysell.
Yeah, I'd just like to comment that once again, it's a really good spread across our communities, and it's going to be great that these smaller organisations are once again supported by council. Thank you.
Would anybody else like to speak? Councillor Goldsworthy.
I'll just pick out one of the events for a particular comment, and that's the Dragged Out Festival that's going to be occurring. The amount of work that's gone into this, the organisers are very active, and I think it bodes well for the inclusiveness of all our people in our Shire, and hopefully it's a very successful festival for them.
Would anybody else like to speak to the motion?
I just wanted to add, there are a couple that didn't get up that looked like amazing events as well. So I'm hoping that they're going to be able to be funded elsewhere, because I think we need to, one of them was the Wurgi Fungi event, and I can't remember what the other one was, but both of them, I thought these are great events that we should be supporting. We've only got a certain amount of money. So I think they're being recommended to apply for funding elsewhere. So I hope they get up as well.
Is anybody against the motion? Carried. Item 12.2, the Community Events Grants Program. The recommendation is that council distributes $15,000 in the 2022-2023 Indigo Shire Community Events Grants Program as follows. Then name 16 events for a total spend of $15,000. Would somebody like to move that recommendation? Councillor Croucher. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Price. Councillor Croucher.
Yeah, I feel the success of this program is the spread of applicants across the Shire. We thought we had a lot of applicants in that last community grants. This one goes right across from Barnawatha to Kaganya to all over the Shire, and who are successful in their applications. This is a very worthwhile program, well received by the communities throughout the Shire. I'd like to just choose one of them, the Kaganya Hall Committee of Management Family Bush Dance, $1,000. This is a result of the community comeback program, which the Shire put on after COVID. It was such a fantastic event that this is now going to be ongoing for this very small community and having this family bush dance. So this is a really well worth event for them and a well worth events program for our Shire.
Councillor Price.
Yeah, just really pleased that we can offer something like this, because as with the previous item, there were bigger asks for money, whereas some of these groups will be getting $500, $600, $800. And sometimes that's all that the community groups are after. So it's really nice to see that with $15,000, we can support 16 events. that otherwise may not have been able to find somewhere to be funded. So really pleased to see that.
Would anybody else like to speak to the motion? Is anybody against the motion? Carried. Item 12.3, the Rutherglen Destination Management Plan. The recommendation is the council adopts the Rutherglen Destination Management Plan for 2022 to 2027. 2, acknowledges that the plan recommends the activation of the Rutherglen Wine Experience building, including the tasting and sale of local wine. Notes that the recommendation to reintroduce wine tasting and sales in the Rutherglen Wine Experience building conflicts with the resolution of council on the 15th of September 2020 to not support any application to the Commission for Gambling and Liquor Regulation for any liquor licence to conduct wine sales at the Rutherglen Visitor Information Centre, and on the basis of the direction of the Destination Management Plan rescinds the 15th of September 2020 resolution to allow for the reintroduction of wine tasting and sales at the Rutherglen Wine Experience building. Somebody like to move that recommendation? Question from Councillor Croucher. Councillor.
Just to the CEO, and given the earlier question that was asked around the sales of alcohol, do you believe that it conflicts in any way to our health plan? And how do we justify having a health plan and selling alcohol within, or potentially selling alcohol within a council co-owned building?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Councillor, very general question there. I think I probably don't want to answer the consumption of alcohol on a health basis. I guess there are some people that perhaps should not drink alcohol in their circumstances. So I wouldn't say that drinking of alcohol is recommended for everybody, but certainly the responsible serving of alcohol is something we would always encourage. And certainly in our Shire, and being home to the Rutherglen Wine District and the strong connection for the production, manufacture, and distribution of wine, the selling of wine to that, and the importance of that industry to the region, I don't see a conflict in regards to council's ambitions and council's objective to encourage that industry within Indigo Shire. It's important industry, so we would support that in every way, shape or form. And certainly we would always encourage the responsible serving and consumption of alcohol in any case. And I think the consumption of alcohol is a general societal norm for those that choose to partake in it, and those that don't can choose not to. I don't see any conflict. Part of your question had some health implications for it, which I don't feel qualified to answer that in all its guises.
Would somebody like to move the recommendation? Moved by Councillor Shepherd, seconded by Councillor Tyson. Councillor Shepherd.
Firstly, the Rutherglen Destination Management Plan is an amazing piece of work when I'd say most of Rutherglen have had a comment on this at some stage. And also I appreciate, well, I'm sure we all appreciate the fact that 8 community members also, when this went out for the review to the community, gave us feedback, and that feedback's in here, and their comments regarding that. I really appreciate. I enjoyed reading people's comments on that. Around the wine tasting and sales, we have, back when we voted previously against it, I was not really supportive of us selling wine, Indigo Shire selling wine. It's not our business, it's not our skill. And I just didn't really, until I could find out what the plan was for that building, I didn't think we should be us selling wine there. We did have a verbal briefing from Winemakers Rutherglen talking about what their vision is for the wine sales and wine tasting in the building. And it obviously they're going to be taking on that space, and they're going to be taking on the wine history, and their vision sounded quite amazing. So we continue on with our tourism side of the building, and Winemakers of Rutherglen, of course, will be. It sounds like quite an amazing space that they're going to be inviting people in, telling them the history, allowing them to taste, and then sending them out to the wineries around the region to buy. But I think the sales is only going to be a small piece in that. It's really, I think, for those people who are just driving through and won't be able to go out. But I think they'll be mainly pushing people out to experience wine visitation at the cellar door. So I was quite happy when I heard that it's really not our area and it's not our space, and we won't be doing it. So, and I've also heard from many people that they feel this needs to be reinstated. The Rutherglen people feel it needs to be reinstated. So I'm taking it at that face value. And so I'm happy to support that this space becomes an area of visitor information, but also an area of wine experience, wine history, wine story.
Councillor Tysell.
Yeah, I second those opinions, and also I'd like to talk about the consultation that's been involved in this plan. Just some of the groups that were involved: the Winemakers of Rutherglen, Tourism Northeast, Federation Council, Indigo, the Waggunya Progress Association, Main Street Traders of Rutherglen, people. There was a considerable consultation process run, and that this is hopefully going to not only promote Rutherglen and the region regionally, but also nationally, and with the potential to expand that globally. So I think this is a fantastic report.
Would anybody else like to? Councillor Goldsworthy.
So the plan itself has 4 pillars to it. Indulging in our wine, food and beverage is just one of those. There are a huge amount of actions that sit under each of those pillars. I believe that whilst there may be wine sales occurring in the Visitor Information Centre again, it's not in conflict with how we conduct ourselves as an organisation, and it will be primarily by the Winemakers of Rutherglen. Our relationship with them has matured, and I believe it'll be a positive outcome for the Rutherglen community. So I support this plan.
Councillor Horn.
I also agree that the serving or the tasting of wine in the centre is a good move. I think it's from an educational point of view, I enjoy the thought that people feel comfortable going into a place like that and picking up some information and then going on out into the individual wineries to gather some more information and purchase. I do, however, have a problem with part of the promotional information in this report. It's part of a campaign that was originated some 15 to 20 years ago, called the Jigsaw, and where all the areas of the state were divided up into different codings. This is called place branding, which is the development or developing and communicating an image based on the positive values and perceptions of the place. My problem with that is that we are considered to be high country, and that patently is not an accurate description of where we are. So I personally would like to see a review of the wording to reduce the emphasis on us being in the high country, because I believe that people visiting the area, coming in expecting an alpine experience, they're going to be bitterly disappointed. And this report will go on for the next 5 years. So I would like us to take the opportunity to just review the wording and see if we can perhaps sharpen it up, keeping in mind that to be part of the promotional opportunities, we need to have that designation. But as I say, if we can adjust the wording, I would be very pleased.
Would anyone else like to speak to the motion? Councillor Shepherd.
Yes, the wine in the information centre is just a very small fraction. It's taken a lot of this motion, but as Councillor Goldsworthy said, there's 4 pillars in this. It's a big, huge vision, and I'd just like to thank Susanna Doyle for the amazing work that she's done with the community and the community themselves, who've really stepped up to give feedback. It's really their document, this document, and I look forward to even a quarter of it being implemented is going to make Rutherglen an amazing destination.
All those in favour, raise your right hand. Carried. Item 12.4, the Beechworth Historic Courthouse tender. The recommendation is the council authorises the CEO, 1, the financial delegation to award contract number 2021000605, Beechworth Historic Courthouse Kelly Trials design, produce, construct and install, and 2, to execute the contract documentation, and 3, the financial delegation to approve contract variations up to a total of 10% of the signed contract value. Would somebody like to move that recommendation? Moved by Councillor Tyson, second by it hasn't been seconded, but I'll just seek some advice from the CEO.
I guess, Mr. Chair, James died from those, but I guess if you haven't accepted a seconder, then you don't have a motion on the books yet. So I'll leave it to your discretion whether you take that motion or alternate motion.
I'm happy to hear the variation.
So my variation is option 2, to provide a tender award recommendation to the October council meeting.
Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Price. Councillor Shepherd.
I think it will be useful for us and the community to go through the normal tender process, where in October we get to see the tenders, we get a report on what the project is about, and we get to vote. And I understand that it's going to be a month behind, but I think it's important in terms of transparency and information of the community that we follow process of tenders over $500,000.
Councillor Price.
Yeah, so the ask of this motion is to not utilise the normal process of the procurement policy, whereby this contract would come to council as it's above the CEO's delegation, and to save on some time to for us to give the CEO authority to execute the contract documentation. I understand that the notion is being put forward that it would save a month, but I'm not satisfied that that needs to happen. I'm satisfied that we have an appropriate procurement policy and that this should go through the usual processes. I understand that there will always be something that comes in just over or just under the figure that we describe, being $500,000. But I would need to be satisfied that there's a very good reason why we would go against the usual process of the procurement policy. In this instance, I'm not satisfied. I'm happy for it to come through to October.
Would somebody else like to speak to the motion? To the motion, Councillor Tyson.
Yeah, look, I note that currently in the building market, time is a very sensitive issue. There are many houses and developments across Australia, really, that just simply aren't even getting started. So if we can actually start something and finish it within the timeframe that is provided for the funding, I think that this particular agreement, although not our normal way of procurement, should be really looked at, and that we can still get a report to council in October with the appropriate information regarding the tenderer and the amount and the time that the project is going to take.
Councillor Goldsworthy.
I have faith in the tender evaluation panel. They comprise of some people that are well regarded and within the organisation and externally. I believe that nothing will change from a recommendation perspective by allowing another month to consider a full tender report. And I'd love to see this project get underway and completed. Quite frankly, it's been around for a long time. But having said that, I also fully understand that we do have processes to follow, and it's important that we follow them in an appropriate manner. And so for that reason, I support the recommendation that's been put up, so that we can, so that the transparency is there for the community to see the process that's we've required in the past, and we will stick to.
Would anybody else like to speak to the motion? I've just got a question. Back in 2021, there was a tender came to council, and council agreed to the tender, which was well in excess of this tender. I was just wondering how much money is left. It started off at 1 million, and this is probably, it seems like, in excess of half of that. Do we know how much money is left?
Mr. Mayor, I'd have to take that on notice. I can say that the expectation with this tender is that with the approval of this tender, it would still, the total project would still remain within budget. But your question to me is how much money is left in the project, and I don't have that information just with me right now. Let's give that to you on notice.
So if this came to the October meeting, the tender, councillors would have the opportunity to read that tender and vote on it because it's in excess of the delegation of procurement. Is that correct?
That's correct. If it came to the October meeting, there would be the usual tender assessment report attachments to the report if it came to the October meeting. That's correct.
Is anybody against the motion? All right, all those in favour, raise your hand. Councillor Shepherd, Goldsworthy, Price, Gaffney, Horn. Against? Tysell and Croucher. The amended motion is carried. Item 12.5, the Youth Mental Health Project Completion Report. The recommendation is the council receives this report outlining the Youth Mental Health Project's achievement. 2, endorses the Youth Mental Health Advocacy Plan to continue project momentum and raise the profile of this work. And 3, expresses appreciation for staff, schools and project partners who contributed to the project's success. It's moved by Councillor Croucher, seconded by Councillor Price. Councillor Croucher.
Yes, I would like to congratulate the team on their report and wonderful project involving youth, major focus on mental health. I'd particularly like to congratulate Terry Scanlon, our Youth Mental Health Project Officer, and his team with the Festival for Healthy Living project. This program focused mainly on primary school students from a number of schools in the Shire, and I was fortunate to attend the conclusion of the program at Rutherglen recently. To see our 100 children participating in a variety of activities, happy and well employed, especially after the last 2 COVID years, was a wonderful experience. Well done, and let's hope we can continue this experience into 2023.
Councillor Price.
Yeah, just really nice to see an offering like this be made available to our smaller schools. They don't always have these opportunities as readily available as they can be. I know that amongst parents of young children, as I am, there's lots of discussions about keeping kids engaged after COVID and all of the little tricks for mental health. And I think that some of these different activities and projects can just make inroads in keeping kids re-engaged after so much disruption. I'd also like to mention that that's touching heavily on the Festival for Healthy Living, but there was also the Sport and Life training. It provides training to sporting clubs and associations on a range of topics, including mental health and wellbeing, responsible drug and alcohol use, gender equity, positive parenting and coaching. And it's really great to see the uptake. And I think we're offering that to a number of 4 more organisations, I think it is. And also the conversations with Andrew Fuller, who was a psychologist and gave 3 educational sessions on tricky behaviours for agency wellbeing staff, staying well in a sick world, for resilience for educators, and building resilience in children. So again, a really great offering for our small communities.
Would anybody else like to speak to the motion? No, I'd just like to say that I'm so pleased that Indigo Shire have taken a lead role in this very, very important health initiative. Is anybody against the motion? Do you wish to sum up, Councillor Croucher? Carried. Item 13.2. The recommendation is the council notes the 2021-2022 Capital Works Annual Summary Report and the year-end 13.1. The recommendation is the council notes the August Capital Works Report and year-to-date progress in the delivery of the Capital Works program. Would somebody like to move that recommendation? Moved by Councillor Goldsworthy, seconded by Councillor Tysell. Councillor Goldsworthy.
It's a very ambitious Capital Works program that we have for this year, some $19 million. If we can achieve anywhere near it, it will be a highly successful year. We're only a couple of months in, and despite the weather, they're still doing okay and spending the money, if nothing else.
Councillor Tysell.
Yeah, I noticed that we have had some challenges with the weather and a couple of the projects are falling a little behind. But as Councillor Goldworthy said, it is quite a large undertaking that Indigo Shire is currently doing, and given the circumstances, they're performing exceptionally.
Would anybody else like to speak to the motion? Is anybody against the motion? Carried. Now, item 13.2, the recommendation that council notes the 2021-2022 Capital Works Annual Summary Report and the year-end achievements in the delivery of the Capital Works program. Somebody like to move by Councillor Goldsworthy, second by Councillor Price. Councillor Goldsworthy.
Yes, so we saw the delivery of some $12 million worth of Capital Works, which equated to a 93% spend on the adopted mid-year budget. It wasn't quite the, I think it was some $16 million that we had hoped for, but boy, with reducing staff and under trying conditions, they did a bloody good job. So I think we should be proud of the works that have been delivered, and the community is certainly gaining more assets every year that they're able to utilise in various activities.
Councillor Price.
Yeah, I hope that this report is something that the community can be really proud of, because we all keep reflecting on all of the different challenges that have come at us all at once. And regardless of all of that, we've had an enormous delivery in capital works for 21-22. So I really thank the staff and all of the community groups that would have worked with us in making sure that these works get delivered.
Councillor Shepherd.
I just have a question. The infrastructure department and these projects have been amazingly run the last few years. It's an amazing department, but I note that one of the areas that they're concerned about is on the latter part of 21-22 has seen a number of vacancies appear in the capital works staffing, and has so far proved very difficult to recruit replacement staff. And as we know from our planning department, once we just can't manage without staff. So my question is to the CEO, what's the plan in terms of recruiting staff or keeping staff in especially in this very important project management area?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So yeah, the plan is to go out and to keep looking for those staff. So we do have options though, and that is to either recruit staff directly, which is the preferred option. There are still contractors out there that we could seek to help contract manage projects if we had to. They're probably coming at a slightly higher cost, but that is the fallback plan. But we are at this stage confident that we can still get the staff that we need to deliver the capital program.
Would anybody else like to speak to the motion? Do you wish to sum up, Councillor Goldsworthy? Is anybody against the motion? Carried. Item 13.3, the recommendation is the council awards contract 2223034 annual reseal contract to Boral Resources Proprietary Limited for the amount of $545,543 excluding GST. 2, authorises the CEO to execute the contract documentation, and 3, authorises the CEO the financial delegation to approve contract variations up to a total of 10% of the signed contract value. Somebody like to move that? Moved by Councillor Goldsworthy, second by Councillor Croucher. Councillor Goldsworthy.
First of all, I'd like to point out that any road that has signage on it that starts with an A, B or C, it's not ours. Those potholes belong to Regional Roads Victoria. So don't blame us. The rest of them, they're ours. We need to reseal them regularly and do some work on them. And yeah, this is the important part of that. So we're looking to spend the money.
Councillor Croucher.
It's very interesting to me to know that there's some sort of process or a formula to get the tender, and Boral Resourcing was the ones that they got the highest vote from that criteria. So well done and congratulations, and I hope that they've got the means to cut out the potholes.
Councillor Shepherd.
I just want to bring to your attention, for the first time, all treatments within the resurfacing program will use PMBs, polymer modified binders, that have a proportion of recycled tyre crumb rubber within them. So whilst this requires slightly higher resurfacing, it is anticipated this should better protect our roads against the ever-increasing traffic volumes, increasing climate temperatures, and lengthen time required between retreatments, better managing ever-increasing costs and carbon emissions. So I'm very pleased to see that there, and congratulate the team on taking that into consideration.
Would anybody else like to speak to the motion? Councillor Goldsworthy. Is anybody against the motion? Carried. Item 14.1, the recommendation is that council notes the Q4 2021-2022 council action plan report. Someone like to move that recommendation? Moved by Councillor Goldsworthy, seconded by Councillor Croucher. Councillor Goldsworthy.
Look, this is an update on where we're at in relation to our council plan, the deliveries. And so it is important to report back to the community as to how we're going. And if there is the interest within the community to see just what we do, this is where you can look at it. So 71 actions have been achieved, 21 actions are a qualified achievement, so close to the mark, and only a couple are not achieved or on hold. That speaks well of the CEO, the directors, and all the staff below them working to what the community want, because the plan was developed in consultation with them. So well done to the CEO and his staff.
Councillor Croucher.
Yeah, another challenging year due to COVID, et cetera. Yet 95% of the actions were either achieved or qualified as achieved. So I'd also like to endorse what Councillor Goldsworthy said and congratulate the team on their efforts.
Would anybody else like to speak to the motion? Anybody against the motion? Carried. Item 14.2, the recommendation is the council endorses the draft community engagement strategy 2022 to 2025 and places it on public exhibition for a period of 28 days and invites submissions. Moved by Councillor Price, second by Councillor Shepherd. Councillor Price.
As it says within the report, this is a priority area for council, and I think it's a priority area for our communities as well. And so we're welcoming submissions for the next 28 days. I think it's really important that we get this strategy right and that it aligns with the expectations of our community, and we set our expectations for ourselves as well.
Councillor Shepherd.
Since I've been on council, I've been really supportive of community engagement and any opportunity for community to be involved in our decision making, even though we're elected on their behalf to make decisions. As I think we're very aware, we have a very opinionated community who want to have input into our decision making. So I really like to thank Mel Collis and her very small team on getting this to I think a really good level of decision-making engagement. And I just really wanted to quickly, there's a list of about 14 ways that the community can be involved in our decision-making. And I'm hoping that when people look at this document, they will be able to choose which area they want to be involved in, but also give feedback on this particular document. I think most people will find that it hits the spot.
Would anybody else like to speak to the motion? Councillor Horn.
My grandmother always said that there's a very, very good reason why God gives us 2 ears and only 1 mouth. And I think it's really important that people do speak out and that we listen to what they're saying and have the opportunity to be involved and understand what's going on in the processes that we operate under. A lot of people don't really get involved in that process until they're unhappy, and then it's often too late. So I would just encourage everybody to have a look at this report, the strategy, and make a contribution to the discussion.
Would anybody else like to speak to the motion? Councillor Price.
I think that we get the most amount of comfort and we're most confident in our decision making when we're really satisfied that community engagement has taken place and has been a really strong part of whatever policy or decision that we're making. So again, please engage with us on this strategy so that we can have a collective idea of what that should look like.
Would anybody else like to speak to the motion? Is anybody against the motion? Carried. Item 14.3, the recommendation is the council adopts the updated advocacy plan 2021 to 2025 year 2. We'd like to move that. Moved by Councillor Shepherd, second Councillor Tyson, Councillor Shepherd.
So this document has been out to the community, and I'd also like to thank quite a few of our advisory committees were given a last minute chance to look over it and give feedback. And I think there was quite a bit of feedback. So thank you to those members of the advisory committees that also put in new advocacy action items. But this is it's a very slick document that we're able to hand to anybody who when our mayor and CEO or whomever goes to see ministers or whoever's out there asking for feedback about what we need. It's all there, and most of it is from the community, and it's a fluid document. So when things change and we need to add to them, we do. But again, thank you to Mel for this is a document that has changed from the one sheet that we used to have a few years ago to being now quite a professional document that I think carries weight when it's handed to somebody.
Councillor Tyson.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, once again, this is a community-driven document that council's actually done. It's quite polished, and it really will help us in the future when opportunities present themselves at other levels. Thank you.
Councillor Horn.
As we are the nearest level of government to the people, our role in advocacy is extremely important, that we express the needs and wants and desires of our communities to the people in Spring Street and also up in Canberra, because unless we tell them what we need and want, it's unlikely that we'll get it. So again, very good place to be having your say and being aware of what's going on.
Councillor Price.
I'd like to thank Mel for her work on this document, because I think it's really important that we articulate exactly what our expectations are to the Mayor and CEO when they in particular advocate on our behalf. I'd just like to note as well that there's been 2 instances recently where the CEO has had to advocate very strongly on our behalf, and all councillors in attendance at those 2 instances have expressed just how confidently he advocated on our behalf, and just how well represented we were. I think it's important that our community hears that, because sometimes these conversations are welcomed in the advocacy space, and sometimes it's a real push. And it's really nice to know that the CEO and the Mayor are really well equipped to go and have those conversations with whoever that may be, the relevant ministers or whoever those audiences are. So thank you.
Would anybody else like to speak to the motion? I'd just like to add that I think it's one of the most important jobs for council. Is anybody against the motion? Carried. Item 14.4, recommendation is the council adopts the updated policy council's response on a catastrophic fire danger day, and that this updated policy will replace the current council services on Code Red Day policy. Somebody like to move that recommendation? Moved by Councillor Goldsworthy, second by Councillor Shepherd. Councillor Goldsworthy.
Well, we've been lucky. We don't get too many days where this would have to be implemented, Code Red Day. I think the last one was back in about 2009 or something, a long time ago. Anyway, look, I agree in the most part to this document. I have some concerns around our swimming pools, but I'll let that lie. I just think that on those on an incredibly hot day, whilst the advice is not to be basically within the Indigo Shire, because we're all a bushfire prone area, you just can't help but think that there will be people that remain behind. But anyway, this is the policy we've got, and in that regard, I support it because it looks after the community as best we can and the council staff.
Councillor Shepherd.
Firstly, I think it's worth noting that we've changed from code red to catastrophic. So we now are in line, I think, with, is it the whole of Australia now? We're all following the same code. So we're all aware what catastrophic means rather than us having code red and New South Wales having catastrophic. So that's worth noting. And so we a new policy to address that. And yeah, I think the main thing with this policy is that community staff, volunteer and councillor wellbeing is of paramount importance. So the rest of the document really just backs that up.
Would anybody else like to speak to the motion? Is anybody against the motion? Carried. Item 14.5. Recommendation is in the exercise of the powers conferred in section 224 of the Local Government Act 1989 and the other legislation referred to in the attached instruments of appointments and authorisation, Indigo Shire Council resolves that the members of the council staff referred to in attachment 1 and 2 be appointed and authorised as set out in the instruments. And 2, the instruments in the attachments come into force immediately upon resolution of council and are revoked on the date the officers cease employment by council or until council determines to vary or revoke it. Somebody like to move that recommendation? Moved by Councillor Tyson, seconded by Councillor Horn. Councillor Tyson.
Yeah, this is just a matter that allows our new planners to actually execute their offices. So we actually need their planners to be able to do their job. So it's great.
Councillor Horn. Would anybody else like to speak to the motion? Is anybody against the motion? Carried. Item 14.6 is for information only regarding contracts awarded under the Chief Executive Officer delegation, which is the Alma Road and Cycle Path Sealing in Beechworth. Item 14.7, the recommendation is that council accepts the attached informal meetings of councillors' records. Moved by Councillor Croucher, seconded by Councillor Tyson. Councillor Croucher. Would anybody else like to speak to this motion? Is anybody against the motion? Carried. Item 14.8, recommendation is that council receives the attached unconfirmed advisory committee minutes. 2, notes the following recommendations from the Finance Committee and that the action is completed. A, the council accepts the draft financial report for June 2022. B, the council accepts the July 2022 financial report. And 3, notes the following recommendations from the Indigo Community Access Advisory Committee and that the action is to be carried out under delegation. A, the Indigo Community Access Committee recommends council investigate funding to support the access programs for businesses. Somebody like to move that recommendation? By Councillor Price, seconded by Councillor Croucher. Councillor Price. Would anybody else like to speak to the motion? Is anybody against the motion? Carried. Item 14, there are no notices of motion. Item 16, councillors' reports. Do we have any? Councillor Price.
Yes, I'd like to mention a meeting that I represented council at. The member for Northern Victoria, Tanya Maxwell, organised a roundtable to discuss Northeast family violence and the legal aid need. In particular, she'd gotten together all of the groups that sort of needed to be around the table, the Hume Riverina, Legal Service, Centre Against Violence as the sort of lead agencies. And there'd been invitations made to Wodonga and Wangaratta and the broader region. This meeting was about the fact that we have a really high incidence of family violence within our region, and yet we don't have a specialist family law court. That was something that was started in, I think, 2019. And there's since been a number of those courts rolled out across the state. And even with our high incidence of family violence, we're still not in the pipeline for one of the next courts that's going to be rolled out. There's lots of metro names listed for where the next 5 will be, but none for us. What that means is that family violence victim survivors within our region have to make their way through the magistrates court, and they're not nearly as supported as they could be, and the magistrate doesn't have some of the special powers that a family law court does. It's an inferior service that we're providing to our community. The need is well established. We have, unfortunately, very high rates of family violence compared to the state average. And the next nearest court for our community to access is Shepparton, which is not in any way appropriate. So it was a great meeting. It was really well ran. I thank Tanya for her advocacy in this space. It's really great to see people from within Indigo Shire who are really active members within this space. It's going to continue. They've got some really great plans for how we're going to advocate to ensure that Wodonga or Wangaratta is listed as one of the next locations for one of these courts. And once the advocacy has been really well worked out, I'll be making a comment to you, CEO, to add it to our advocacy plan, because it's a really worthwhile cause and a really good space for us to play in it as local government.
Do we have any other councillor reports? I'd just like to mention that the CEO and I travelled to Bright last week and met with the Minister for Infrastructure and also the federal member for Indi, and told of the needs of Indigo Shire Council and how could those needs be addressed. And we also spoke about the upcoming October budget with the new federal government, and we were very well received. The CEO spoke very well, and I expect some positive announcements coming up. Item 16.1 is the Mayor's Diary. Any questions? Item 17, for information only, the decisions register. Item 18, general business. Councillor Shepherd.
I represented, and so did Councillor Croucher. We went to the Beechworth Contemporary Art Award event, a biennial event, and biennial, and it was the first one, and it was amazing. I don't know if anybody got to wander around Beechworth that weekend, but there were, I think, in the end, 9 contemporary art pieces around the town, and they were the finalists. I'm not sure how many applicants there were, but they were the finalists, and they were amazing pieces of work. And the winner of the $10,000 Contemporary Art Award was Susie Losh, who's a local, Gundowring woman, and she had an amazing installation in the hall with the organ. And it looked as if the organ was playing these great, huge balloon-like. It was amazing, wasn't it? And it was all, I just felt like, wow, I don't even have to go to Melbourne. And here's this amazing art space around Beechworth. So congratulations to Nina Mashidi Hunt for, I think, I know it's hard work starting something. And she's now it's started. I look forward to in another 2 years, the next event. So congratulations to them. And I also wanted to raise that we were involved with setting up the EV charger with Tri and a few other people in Yakandanda. So just wanted to say that that's the first public charger in our shire. And congratulations to us and to Tri and to the other people that were involved in that. And it's now up and being used.
Do we have any other councillor reports? Well, that's what, yeah, but I just asked, is there any other councillor reports? General business, councillor Tyson.
Yeah, thank you. I have a few items. I was wondering if through the CEO, we may be able to have a meeting with Albury Wodonga Health in regards to their current master plan and what that may mean for the residents of Indigo Shire. There's one. Parking signage is quite poor in Chiltern when you coming in and doesn't direct traffic very well to the parking that is available behind the main street. So I was wondering if we could potentially look at the signage through there and see whether or not we could do some extra work along there. And we've actually, well, in past, present and in the future are spending quite a lot of money on cycling tracks. And I was wondering whether or not we could get some statistics once the weather warms up and people actually feel like getting out on a bike and see how many people are actually using our tracks. And my last is, most of us, when we receive complaints from members within Indigo Shire, it's about whether or not they've been contacted or lack of contact from council. I was wondering whether or not we could get some customer service statistics for our next meeting and see whether or not we're tracking. Thank you.
Councillor Horn.
Further to our community meeting, community forum that we had in Rutherglen recently, I was wondering about the possibility of pursuing an interest in reducing the speed on the Upriver Gurumetta Road. We have spoken about it before, and I wondered if we could perhaps ask Rural Roads Victoria if they could look into that. I think that would be, go some way to allaying the concerns of the local people. But also if we could perhaps look at having traffic counts on that road too. I don't think we've done any for quite some time.
Do we have any other general business? Councillor Goldsworthy.
Yeah, I'd just like to take the time to acknowledge the contribution of Mark Florence, the Director for Community and Economic Development. The three of us have known Mark since we were first elected in 2008, and other councillors have come along since then. But Mark has been responsible for the department that's delivered, if you have a look at the strategies and master plans on our website, predominantly most of those plans, he's across almost everything. If you go through some of them, the importance and the change in attitudes that we've seen from council in 2008 to current day, things like the Reconciliation Action Plan, our Ageing Well Plan, early years, our youth strategy, the Gender Equity Action Plan, so our recreation plans, pandemic and health plans, the amount of grants that he's been able to successfully obtain for things like tennis courts, netball, football, cricket, our swimming pools. He's seen us change our focus from providing infrastructure to delivering programs where we don't just fund things that we build. We also help with the delivery programs. So whilst some departments like infrastructure get a lot of money, Mark has had to do so much with so little for so long. He's now an expert and can do almost anything with nothing. For years, he looked after the planning department. he stood beside me in 2012, an angry crowd in the Indigo Valley when we're talking about trees. And he stood his ground, and yeah, he's provided free and fearless advice to council, and for which I've always appreciated. Of recent times, we've embraced things like the Rainbow Ball and the Ida Hobbit Day. And so you can really see where things have changed under his tutelage, and he will be missed within the organisation. He's often a silent achiever, somebody who's sent in to try and mediate amongst groups who are disparate and not getting along. And for all your contribution, I thank you from myself, and I'd like to thank on behalf of council. Thank you, Mark, and happy retirement.
Councillor Croucher.
I also would like to recognise what Mark Florence has done for us in Indigo Shire as a whole over a long period of time. Indigo Shire is indeed indebted to the knowledge and experience of Mark Florence during his time on council. Good luck, Mark, to you and your family in the future, and may the Bulldogs continue to do well in the future, but not at the expense of the Brisbane Lions.
Just in general business, CEO, I was just wondering. Well, I was only going to take a second. The Good Shed, it's been empty for nearly 4 years. A businessman said, is it available for rent? How much rent do you want? Will council be putting services in? It's just costing us money. It's just like a white elephant. The community want to use it. They're not allowed to. I'm just wondering where it's going to be up to. If you could give us a report perhaps at the next council meeting. It can't just sit there. And some people say it might be worth $400 or $500 a week rent. So I'll leave it at that, Mark. Mark?
On mute, Mark.
Well, that's pretty apt at the end of a career. Thank you, Councillor Gosworthy and Croucher, for those kind words. Yes, it's a fairly much a bittersweet feeling at the moment. That I'm really grateful and privileged to have worked with so many wonderful community members and communities as a whole in achieving some terrific outcomes, not only in facilities, but in services and programs and changes and reforms in those communities. I'm also very privileged to have worked with some outstanding, committed, professional staff and team members. That will be the biggest loss for me, the sadness for me, to be able to work with those dedicated people who have given their all across the 13 and a half years I've been here, and the achievements that they've been able to achieve has been really significant. So thank you for the opportunity. I can now sort of go away and be a normal ratepayer, and perhaps be one of those ones that I've been dealing with for over the years. So yeah, all the best to everybody, and thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Item 19, which is confidential business. This contains personal information, being information which, if released, would result in the unreasonable disclosure of information about any person or their personal affairs. The recommendation is that the council meeting be closed to the public in accordance with section 66 of the Local Government Act. Would somebody like to move that recommendation? Moved by Councillor Horn, seconded by Councillor Tysell. Is anybody against the recommendation? Carried. So the meeting's now closed to the public. We will return after the confidential business is over. Welcome back to the council meeting. Councillor Shepherd.
I'd just like to thank you, Jane Still, for the great work you've done as our governance officer. You have whipped us into line and whipped our governance into line. It's been, I know to begin with, you might have felt like we were a little bit resistant, and I for one was, but now I can really see the benefit of good governance. And thank you very much for making me appreciate it. And we'll miss you in that space, and good luck in your next adventure.
Councillor Goldsworthy.
Yes, so to continue the applause, thank you very much for all that you've done. Governance is important in running a good meeting, and you've certainly got our local laws and our governance up to what we, the practice that we undertake, not just in practice, but in words as well. So thank you for your work, and good luck in your next employment.
I'd just like to say, Jane, the best times we've had together, I think, have been in audit meetings. Well done and congratulations.
I'd just like to say thank you, Jane. The first two words I learnt when I came into council was infrastructure and governance. They were the two words. And I've certainly learned a lot, and a lot more from you too as well. Thank you very much, and good luck for the future.
Jane, I've always appreciated your friendliness and your approachability, and also educating me on lots of things that I had no idea about. And I have no idea how you struggle through all that dry stuff. I'm glad it's you, not me. But I do wish you all the very best in the future.
I now declare the meeting closed.